When I turned 78, I thought the hardest storms of life were behind me. I had faced poverty, I had faced widowhood, and I had raised my only son with everything I had. My days were supposed to be quiet now, tea in the mornings, knitting in the afternoons, and prayers in the evenings. But life had one more storm waiting for me. It started with a pain in my chest. At first, I thought it was nothing, just old age. But the doctors, after tests and scans, sat me down one morning with faces heavy with silence. One word changed everything. Cancer. Breast cancer. At 7, I felt the ground slip beneath me. How could this happen so late in my life? Haven't I already given enough tears to fate? As I left the hospital that day, clutching the prescription papers, I thought of my son. Surely, he would come running when he heard. Surely, he would say, "Mother, don't worry, I'll be with you." After all, I had given him my youth, my earnings, my love. I had denied myself so many comforts just to make his life easy. Surely, he would remember. But days passed. Then weeks. The phone never rang. No knock at the door. No voice asking, "Are you okay, Mother?" He knew, but he never came. People said he was busy, building his business, living his life. But what about my life? Did my pain not matter to him? Did the woman who carried him, fed him, raised him, now mean nothing? I sat in the hospital waiting room, surrounded by women with their daughters holding their hands, their sons pushing their wheelchairs. And there I was, alone. My eyes burned with tears as I watched those families. Not from envy, but from heartbreak. I had a son too, but I was invisible to him. That night, lying on my bed, I whispered into the silence, "God, why did you give me a son, only to leave me motherless in my old age?" The tears came freely then. I pressed my hand against my chest, not just because of the cancer inside me, but because of the emptiness that abandonment had carved into my heart. Cancer was frightening, but being abandoned by my own blood, that was the deeper wound. The disease attacked my body, but my son's absence attacked my soul. The doctors told me chemotherapy was my only chance. At my age it was risky, but they said without it, I would not last long. So I agreed. Not because I was brave, but because somewhere deep inside, I still wanted to live. I wanted to see another sunrise, hear another laugh of my grandchildren, smell another rose in my garden. I wanted life. The first round of chemotherapy left me weak, as though every drop of strength was drained from me. My hands shook when I tried to hold a spoon. My legs trembled when I stood. The mirror became my enemy. One morning, as I brushed my hair, thick strands fell into the sink. I stared at them, touching my bald spots, and tears rolled down my face. I whispered, "What have I become?" In the hospital ward, women my age sat with their children by their side. Some had daughters fixing their scarves. Some had sons reading to them, or holding their hands while the four dripped into their veins. I sat quietly, pretending I was fine, while inside, my heart was screaming, "Where is my son? Why is he not here?" Each time the nurse asked, "Should we call someone to sit with you?" I forced a smile and said, "No, I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. I was fighting cancer with medicine, and loneliness with silence. And believe me, loneliness is the harsher poison. At night, in my little room, I wrapped a scarf around my head and looked at old photo albums. There he was, my son, smiling at his school graduation, smiling on his wedding day. I remembered how I sold my jewelry to pay for his education, how I worked 2 jobs so he could chase his dreams. My tears fell on those pictures as I whispered, "I gave you my everything. Why couldn't you give me even your presence?" Chemotherapy burned my veins, but the silence burned my soul. Each hospital visit felt like walking into a battlefield alone. My body was fragile, my spirit weaker. Some days, I prayed not to wake up, because the pain of being forgotten was heavier than the cancer itself. My dear friends, if you know someone fighting cancer, please understand this. Medicine can heal the body, but love heals the soul. Even one visit, one phone call, one touch can give strength greater than any pill. Don't let your loved ones fight alone, because loneliness kills faster than disease. Those days were my lowest. I felt stripped of my dignity, my health, my family's love. But even in that silence, a tiny voice inside me whispered, "This is not the end. You still have a fight left in you." One evening, after another long day at the hospital, I returned home exhausted. My body trembled with weakness, and my spirit felt like it was breaking. As I unlocked my door, my neighbor Mrs. Taylor appeared. She held a warm bowl of soup and said, "I thought you might need this." Her kindness brought tears to my eyes. For weeks, my own son hadn't knocked on my door. Yet here was a neighbor offering me comfort. Soon, I noticed others too. A young nurse at the hospital would sit beside me, telling me stories to distract me during chemo. The pharmacist down the street began greeting me with a gentle, "How are you holding up today?" The mailman left little notes on my doorstep that said, "Stay strong, ma'am." Small gestures, yet they felt like lifelines. Each one reminded me that even when family abandons you, love can still find you. Then came the most unexpected gift of all, my granddaughter. Though my son stayed away, she secretly came to visit me. With her little hands, she brushed my scarf into place and whispered, "Grandma, you're still the most beautiful person I know." In that moment, I felt my heart beat with hope again. For weeks, I had stared at the mirror, ashamed of my bald head and tired face. But in her eyes, I was still whole, still loved. She brought me drawings with hearts and flowers, taped them on my wall, and said, "Whenever you feel weak, look at these, they'll make you strong." And they did. On the nights when I wanted to give up, I looked at those childish but pure drawings and felt a spark of courage rise inside me. The world had taken away my son's presence, but God had sent me angels in different forms, a kind neighbor, a nurse, a granddaughter's smile. I realized something important. Family is not always by blood. Sometimes it is by love, and sometimes strangers show you more care than the ones you raised with your own hands. Guidance break. My dear friends, if you are abandoned or forgotten, please don't lose hope. Look around. Love may come from unexpected places. A kind word, a helping hand, even a stranger's smile can give you the strength to keep fighting. Never think you are truly alone. With every act of kindness, I began to believe again. I began to see that though my son's absence left a wound, it did not mean my life was empty. Others were filling my days with light, and that light was stronger than the darkness of betrayal. Chemotherapy was not just medicine flowing through my veins, it was fire. It burned me from inside out. My skin grew pale, my lips cracked, my body frail. There were days I couldn't even lift a spoon to feed myself. But each time I wanted to give up, I remembered the little voices that told me, "Stay strong, Grandma." Those words became my shield. One morning, after a particularly hard round of chemo, I stood in front of the mirror. My head was bare, my face tired, my body weak. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. But then I whispered to my reflection, "I am not finished yet. Cancer can take my hair, my strength, even my comfort, but it cannot take my will to live." I began making small choices to fight back. I ate healthier, even when my appetite vanished. I forced myself to walk around the garden, even if it was just 5 steps. I prayed every morning, asking God for just enough strength to get through one more day. Not a year, not a month, just one day. And day by day, those prayers carried me. Faith became my medicine too. At night, when fear whispered that I wouldn't see another sunrise, I opened my Bible and read the Psalms. Tears blurred the words, but each verse reminded me that God had not abandoned me, even if my son had. I felt a quiet voice in my heart say, "You are not alone. I am with you," and that gave me peace in the storm. The doctors often looked at me with surprise. At 78, Most patients with my condition gave up halfway, but I kept showing up. Weak, trembling, but present. Each time they inserted the 4, I told myself, this is not pain. This is life being given back to me. My nurse once said, "You fight harder than people half your age." I smiled faintly and replied, "Because I still have a reason to live." That reason was not wealth, not recognition, not even my son's approval anymore. It was love, the love of my granddaughter, the kindness of neighbors, the promise of more sunsets, and the faith that God still had a purpose for me. My dear friends, if you are battling an illness, remember this: fight with your medicine, but also fight with your spirit. Don't measure your strength by how much you can lift, but by how much hope you carry. And lean on faith, because sometimes, when our strength fails, faith carries us the rest of the way. Step by step, prayer by prayer, I kept moving forward. Cancer was trying to break my body, but faith was rebuilding my soul. Months passed. The treatments felt endless, and the nights felt even longer. But one morning, the doctor walked in with a smile I hadn't seen before. He held my test results in his hand and said softly, "Congratulations. The cancer is gone." For a moment, I could not believe my ears. I looked at him with trembling eyes and whispered, "Are you sure?" He nodded. That day, my tears finally fell, but this time, they were tears of victory. I walked slowly out of that hospital, weaker in body but stronger in spirit. The sky looked brighter, the air fresher, the world more alive. I had survived. At 78, when many thought I would fade away, I had been given another chance at life. Did my son come back to see me? No. Even after hearing of my recovery, he never visited. For a while, that truth hurt. But then I realized something important. Survival is not about who stands beside you. It is about who you choose to be, even when you stand alone. I learned that family is not always blood. My neighbor who brought me soup, the nurse who held my hand, my granddaughter who called me beautiful when I was bald, they became my family. They gave me the courage my son could not. And I am grateful for them, for they showed me that love still exists, even when betrayal cuts deep. Today, when I sit in my garden with the sunlight warming my face, I do not think of the pain, the loneliness, or the abandonment. I think of the strength I found in my darkest hour. I think of the faith that carried me when my body could not. And I think of the life that still flows in me, reminding me that my story is not over. My dear friends, if you are fighting an illness, or if you feel abandoned, please hear me. Do not give up. Your life has value, no matter who chooses to leave you. Your breath matters, your story matters, and you are stronger than you think. Cancer did not defeat me, because I refused to surrender. You too can rise again. At 78, I found out that life still has beauty, even after pain. And I promise you, if you keep hope, keep faith, and keep fighting, you will find your light too.